All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to explore the absolute epic, real-life story of a genuine science superhero. We are talking about the one and only Louis Pasteur. He's a man whose incredible discoveries literally changed the world forever, and honestly, they continue to save human and animal lives every single day. So if you're into fascinating mysteries, battling invisible enemies, and stories of true heroism, you are in the exact right place.
So I want to start off by asking you a quick question. Have you ever actually wondered why your milk is safe to drink? Or, why your fruit juice doesn't just instantly spoil the second it sits on the kitchen counter? You might have even seen a really big, fancy word printed right there on your milk carton at breakfast. Well, the answer to that everyday mystery connects directly to the incredible hero of our explainer.
It all comes down to these invisible little troublemakers, germs, or microbes. You see, before our science superhero came along, people didn't really understand that these tiny, microscopic bandits were absolutely everywhere. I mean, they hop from person to person, they float silently in the air we breathe, and they live all around us. For a really long time, they were the ultimate invisible enemy, causing foods to spoil and people to get terribly sick, and nobody knew why or how.
Chapter 1. Meet the Germ Genius.
Every great superhero needs an origin story, right? And what's so amazing here is that our hero didn't start out in some fancy high-tech laboratory. Louis Pasteur was born in France back in 1822 to a pretty poor family of leather tanners. And he wasn't actually a super student at first. In fact, his chemistry grades early on were, well, pretty bad. He was really just a regular kid who loved spending his days fishing, and he was incredibly good at drawing these highly detailed portraits of his friends and family using pastels and pencils. But he did have one very important underlying superpower: a deeply curious mind and an absolute willingness to work incredibly hard at whatever he set his mind to.
Chapter 2. A Mission Born from Tragedy.
To really understand what made him the relentless, driven scientist he became, we have to look closely at his personal motivation. Louis married a wonderful woman named Marie Laurent in 1849, and together they had 5 beautiful children. But tragically, Louis and Marie lost 3 of their precious kids to a terrible spreading disease called typhoid fever. As a loving father, his heart was just completely broken. But Louis was a man of deeply held Christian faith throughout his entire life, so instead of giving up or letting his grief completely consume him, he allowed this heartbreaking loss, combined with his strong faith, to give him an unstoppable drive. He made it his absolute lifelong mission to investigate infectious diseases, to find cures, and to serve others, all so that fewer families would ever have to suffer the way his family did.
Chapter 3. Discovering the Invisible Enemy.
That powerful, deeply personal mission became his first major scientific quest, figuring out where spoiling and sickness actually came from in the first place. Now, back then, people believed in this wild, almost magical myth called spontaneous generation. They genuinely thought living creatures, like maggots or germs, just, popped into existence out of thin air from rotting apples or old meat. Crazy, right? But Louis suspected they were completely wrong. He proposed the germ theory. This was the radical, brilliant idea that germs are actually tiny living things that float around in the environment and only ever come from other germs.
To prove it, he designed a totally ingenious experiment. He created these special glass bottles, but instead of normal straight necks, he had the glass stretched out into these long, skinny tubes that curved downward and then back up. They looked exactly like the letter S. So, step 1, he boiled liquid broth inside these unusual bottles to completely kill whatever microscopic germs were already in there. Step 2, he left the bottles wide open to the air. And step 3, he just waited. Because of that clever S-curve, the tiny invisible germs floating in the air got trapped in the dusty bottom of the curve. They couldn't travel up and over into the broth. The broth stayed perfectly, miraculously clear. Boom. He completely busted the magic myth and proved to the whole world that germs travel in the air.
Chapter 4. The Power of Pasteurization. Okay, so now we had to figure out how to stop these newly discovered bad germs from ruining our food and drinks, which brings us to a word you'll definitely recognize: pasteurization. Yep, named right after our hero. The owner of a local factory came to Louis in an absolute panic because vats and vats of his alcohol were turning sour and rotting. It was threatening to ruin his whole business. So Louis looked closely under his microscope, spotted the bad bacteria causing the rot, and came up with a brilliant fix. By heating the liquid up to a very specific, careful temperature for just a short amount of time, he found he could kill the harmful germs without ruining the taste of the drink itself. And today, that exact same process is what keeps our milk, our juices, and a ton of other foods perfectly safe for you to drink without ever getting sick.
Chapter 5. Victorious Vaccines Save Lives.
Now that he had saved our food, Louis turned his attention to his most thrilling and honestly dangerous quest of all, saving people and animals from deadly diseases. To really understand what he did here, let's look at what a vaccine actually is. I want you to think of it kind of like a training dummy for your body's immune system. It's basically a weak or mostly dead form of a specific disease. When it goes into your body, it isn't strong enough to make you super sick, but it teaches your internal immune system exactly how to fight it off. That way, if the real strong, dangerous disease ever tries to attack you later on, your body has a natural shield already built up and is completely ready to crush it.
Let's see how these super skills grew over time. First up, Louis accidentally left some chicken cholera germs sitting out on his lab bench while he went away on a summer vacation. When he got back and gave these dried-up, weakened germs to chickens, they didn't die. They actually became immune to the disease. It was a huge breakthrough. Second, he boldly built on the work of another scientist to test a highly successful vaccine for anthrax, a terrible disease that was literally wiping out entire herds of farm animals like cows and sheep all across the country. But his third challenge? That was going to be the scariest of all. Rabies, a terrifying, painful, and absolutely deadly virus.
The ultimate test of his entire life happened in the year 1885. A crying, desperate mother burst into his lab, holding her 9-year-old son, Joseph Meister. Little Joseph had been brutally attacked and bitten 14 times by a rabies dog. Now, at this point, Louis had developed a rabies vaccine, but he had never, ever tested it on a human being. It was an incredibly nerve-wracking, agonizing decision, but he knew for a fact that without the vaccine, the young boy would definitely not survive the virus. So, Louis bravely administered the weakened vaccine shots over several really tense weeks, and guess what? It worked. Young Joseph stayed perfectly healthy, the rabies never took hold, and Louis Pasteur made medical history right then and there.
Chapter 6. A Life-Saving Legacy. So how exactly did this one man's journey change the world forever? Well, he summed up his incredible success perfectly with this brilliant quote. In the field of observation, chance favors the prepared mind. You see, Louis didn't just get lucky when he figured out how to make vaccines from dried-up germs or how to kill bacteria with heat. He found those answers because he was always observing, always testing, and always ready to learn from his mistakes and laboratory accidents. He prepared his mind through years of hard work. And because of that, when an opportunity appeared, he was fully ready to seize the chance to change the world. I mean, just look at this. These are real, actual bacteria, magnified incredibly close up. Pretty wild, right? Louis Pasteur passed away as a celebrated national hero in 1895. But his legacy? It certainly didn't die with him. Because of his relentless drive to help others, a drive born out of his own family's tragedy, we now know exactly what these germs look like, how they travel, how they work, and most importantly, how to fight them. His life's work literally lives on in every clean, safe bottle of milk you drink and in every life-saving vaccine given in doctors' offices around the entire world today.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Science isn't just about old guys and dusty history books. It's an exciting, ongoing adventure that desperately needs curious minds. Remember, Louis Pasteur started as just an average kid who loved drawing with pastels and asking a whole lot of questions. So I'm going to leave you with this. What invisible mysteries are you going to discover in your life? Stay curious, keep asking big questions, and hey, maybe one day you'll be the hero of your very own scientific story. Thanks so much for learning with me today.